it's question time. I recently asked my Patreon patron, I asked him if there was anything he wanted me to answer, and he sent me this question. So, this one's for you, Nathaniel. If you want to be cool like Nathaniel, you can go check out my Patreon family. There are different levels of tiers, starting from $1 all the way up to $50 a month. Each different tier gains you different levels of access. Some things give you limited edition behind-the-scenes newsletters and tips from writing to publishing to platform building, all that jazz. You only get that if you're my patron. That's it. That's the only way to get it. Other things get you behind the scenes little stories about my short stories, like how did I get the idea, where did they come from, was I experimenting with something here, all that jazz. The $1 a month tier just tells me you love me, gives you access to little updates from me that happen every once in a while. There's at least one a month, but nothing like a newsletter. They're just short little updates. And then the $50 a month gives you one free consultation with me, not to mention access to everything else I've already listed, and Q&As and chats and stuff like that. So I would love to have you join me. I think that would be super fun and super cool, and I love helping people get where they're trying to go, and if I can help you get there by giving you resources and giving you feedback and stuff like that, I would love to do that. If you don't want to join my Patreon family, but you still want that sort of consultation, you can check out my website. I do offer consultation slots. Charge $1 a minute, though, so it's more beneficial to you to join my Patreon family in all sorts of ways. All right. Let's get right into it, though. This one specifically is for Nathaniel. He asked, what do you do when you feel like you want to write, but you don't have the motivation nor the self-discipline to do so? Ooh, that's a hard one. Most often for me, I find that I want to write, and I have the motivation to do so, and I have the self-discipline, but I don't have the time. Or I have that, I want to write, but I don't have any ideas. So when that happens, I open up a document, like my notes app, and I just go from there, and I literally usually start with the word I, and I just see what happens. Because I tend to write in first person past tense for most things. However, the books that I'm currently writing will be in third person past tense because it makes more sense with the ensemble cast and the multiple points of view. But the days where I want to write, but I don't have the motivation to do so, I tend to try to find a different outlet for that creativity. Whether that's drawing or sewing, reading something, I'll jot down whatever notes I can think of, because if I have that desire, usually it's because there's something going around in my mind, and I need to explore it. So I'll start jotting stuff down, fragments of thoughts, typically, things that really won't make a whole lot of sense later, but at least I tried to get them down, right? Like, I literally used to keep a notebook in my car because I would get the best ideas while driving. And then at red lights, I would pull out my pen in that notebook that was literally kept in the glove compartment and just start trying to jot everything down as quickly as I could at the red light. I never had enough time. That was one of those weird moments where I wish the red lights were longer. But yeah, so I just start jotting down anything I can think of, anything that might remind me of the idea I'm having. If it's segments or fragments, or I don't have the motivation to write whatever scene I need to write, I'll jump ahead. I'll go to the next scene, if I possibly can. Oftentimes with my characters and the way that I'm writing these novels, it's okay if I jump around because I can write from a different person's perspective in a different point in the timeline, and then I can connect the dots later. Alternatively, these things are happening at exactly the same time, and it's okay that I have jumped to a different perspective. So that's something else that I do sometimes. If I don't have the discipline to write, I set a timer. Word sprints are both helpful and the end of me. I say that because if I'm doing a word sprint, I set a timer for 15 minutes and then I write as much as I freaking can. And if I can't get any more than that, that's okay. I'll leave it at that. I'll say, good job, I wrote today. And then I'll go do something else like read a book or play a video game or draw or sew or whatever it is that I'm doing, right? There are all sorts of things that I do that refill my creative bank before I empty it all out again. So I don't see a problem in spending 15 minutes writing and then going from there. If I don't even have the focus for 15 minutes, then I'll jump it down to 10. If that's too hard, then I'll drop down to 5. And if I can get at least 100 words written, I'll call it a success. Usually once I sit down and I actually force myself to write at least 100 words, I can't stop, and then I'm okay again. But I know that there are also days where that just isn't the case, and part of being a creative soul is understanding that there are days when you won't be able to sit down and write, or you won't be able to sit down and paint, or you won't be able to sit down and draw. And being a creative and a creator means that you have to be okay with that. You just have to be able to forgive yourself when you can't produce as fast and as much and as often as you want to. Because creating, in its very nature, takes so much energy and so much effort, especially if you're a binge creator like I am. My mom was laughing the other day when I was working on a sewing project, because when I start something like that, or when I'm in a binge writing zone, I literally do nothing else. I don't watch TV. I listen to the same 15 songs on repeat because changing the playlist is too much effort. So I just listen to the playlist on repeat, and then I completely lose track of time, and 8 hours have gone by, and I've just been sewing, or writing, or reading. That hasn't happened as much recently, but I'll start creating, and then I just won't stop for the next 15, 20, 25 hours. I'll take a break for food, and I'll take a break for, sleeping. But other than that, that's all I do. I go to work and I come home and then I do that. Whatever it is that I'm doing, right? And that's not necessarily a healthy way to create stuff, but it also means that when I'm out of those zones, I have to make sure that I take care of myself so that in those zones, I'm okay. But yeah, so with the lack of motivation, usually it just means that I've exited one of those zones and I just need to be soft and gentle with myself. Do something else that I really enjoy, do something else that I find rejuvenating. And I'll actually find that when I do come back to writing, I have more motivation and more focus. The other thing that I do is I just go and work out a bit. Personally, I love doing the Fitness Marshall workouts on YouTube. He creates a bunch of Zumba dances and stuff like that. So when my brain gets stuck and I don't have the motivation to do anything else, I'll go have fun, I'll smile, I'll laugh, I'll dance, and then I'll try to come back to it. Usually, if I cannot produce the way that I'm used to producing, it just means that I haven't been taking care of myself the way that I need to in order to maintain that schedule that I've set for myself. But that is, all of this is stuff that I learned over the last few years. It took me a really long time to know how to read my own body's signals to say, hey, you need to slow down or you're going to burn out. because I was always a high achiever as a kid. I graduated as valedictorian of my high school class. And then in college, anything below a B felt like a failure to me. And so learning how to be gentle with myself and learning how to read my body's signals of, hey, you are pushing too hard. I need you to stop. So that I didn't have to force stop, essentially. So that I didn't have breakdowns and fallouts, and I wasn't emotionally lashing out at people because I was just too tired. Part of that, it's learning how to take care of yourself. And for me, at least, writing and creating is part of that, but it's also a drain. It is simultaneously self-care and draining for me to sit down and write, because it takes so much energy. And so when I'm binge writing, like most Novembers, anybody who has seen me do NaNoWriMo before knows that when I push that hard for that long, especially because I have written entire novels in 2 weeks or less, when I push that hard for that long, it takes me another 2 weeks to a month to recover. And I'm capable of it, but I shouldn't do it all the time. Learning that about myself was one of the most important things for me to learn. So, yeah, what do I do when I don't have motivation or I don't have enough focus? I allow myself to do something else, and then I come back to it. Because usually if I don't have the focus and the motivation, it's because I'm lacking something in my self-care, so I figure out what I'm lacking, and then I supplement it, and I do something else. Going on a walk, eating a snack, exercising. All of that can feed into having a healthy writing life. So, also coffee or tea. That also helps. Sleep. Naps are so important and an underrated productivity tool. You heard it here. Okay. Thank you so much for that question, Nathaniel. I look forward to any other questions that you or anyone else has in the future. Again, if you want to have direct videos like this, you can join my Patreon family. Otherwise, you can just submit your questions, and I'll get to them eventually in a question video where I answer multiple questions at a time. And until next time, I'll see you then. Don't forget to go check out my merch shop. Don't forget to go check out my short stories. And have a happy rest of 2020. Whew. See ya.